with somebody that I think's got one of the best names in rock. It's the one and only Ace Von Johnson. How are you?
I'm very well, Anne. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Now, I understand you're in Hollywood at the moment, which is where you live. Sorry, my
Yes,
voice
ma'am.
is going a bit.
Yeah, that's all right.
What's lockdown been like there?
Um, Interesting. I don't know what it's like across the world and whatnot with this quarantine stuff, but the initial shutdown stuff was a bit concerning. But at this point, a few months down the road, I've definitely gotten sort of accustomed to it and went grocery shopping yesterday, and as I do every 2 weeks or so, and they just sort of reduced things to where they closed indoor restaurants and bars, which I think is a good idea. And but we can still go for a walk and go to the beach and have outdoor dining and other stuff. So
So
it's been strange.
they didn't close the beaches or anything like that.
They did for a while, yeah. They did over the
Yeah.
Fourth of July holiday, which I think was the right thing to do. But it's been kind of up and down. They're sort of with the whole novel coronavirus, the new aspect of it is we're sort of learning as we go. I imagine everywhere else is too, seeing what sort of reduces spread and whatnot. But as far as things here in Hollywood, there was a lot of protests, which I think were necessary. But it also was, I mean, I could hear outside, you know, voices and helicopters, and it was a lot. It was a little stressful, all the things, all those factors all at once. But overall, I mean, I'm a native Angelino, so I've lived here my whole life. I'm about 8 miles south of the hospital I was born at. So this is sort of, I lived through the riots in the 90s and earthquakes
Yeah.
and disasters. So this is just another confined to Los Angeles. It's just another chapter in the sort of story of this town. But again, the weird thing about the whole quarantine thing is it's not just LA, it's not just America, it's not just Britain, it's everywhere, it's everybody. So there's an interesting sort of unity behind that where we're all sort of dealing with.
Shared problem.
Yeah, shared problem indeed.
Well, they say a problem shared is a problem halved, but probably not in this case.
No, I'd like to think so normally, but yeah, not in this case.
So you're well known for being lead guitarist of the glam metal band Faster Pussycat and rhythm guitarist for LA Guns.
Yeah.
You've also played with quite a lot of other bands. So is there anyone that you haven't played with yet that you'd like to?
Oh, I mean, that's an ever-growing list. I'd like to play with some people
You say that as
outside.
if it's a chore. Oh no, the list of people I've played with is it's too
No,
much.
no, I don't mean a chore. It's more of a chore for me to think of all the people. Yeah, I guess
Exactly.
yeah, you're right. I misinterpreted what you said. Yeah, obviously the people that I would love to play with are my idols, like Alice Cooper, Glenn Danzig, people like that. Of course, I've worked with members of those bands, but
Yeah.
I've definitely had a diverse. Just more recently, I think comes out in the fall, but I just recorded a song with Tiffany. I think we're alone now, Tiffany, pop star, and
Yeah.
and a couple other people that are sort of, or artists or bands that are sort of, outside of maybe what people would normally expect me to work with. And so
I mean, how did
I
that come about? I wouldn't have expected you teaming up with Tiffany
well,
for a
she's
project.
actually
So
she's a I don't think closet rock fan. I don't think there's any secret about it, but she's definitely a rock fan. And we had done a benefit together, the Rock Against MS, which I've participated in for a few years now. I think about a year ago, we did a song or two together. I can't recall, and just sort of hit it off. And I think we were having a drink somewhere, and she was like, "Hey, you want to play in a song on my new record?" And Bob's your uncle, if you will, and that's how it happened. But,
now you must have played a huge number of gigs and festivals over the years. I'm sure you've lost count, but are there any that stand out in your memory as being either the best gig or the worst gig? So tell us about those.
uh, the worst gig. I mean, the worst gigs are more memorable. Um, I mean, I've played in front of 20,000 people, and I've played in front of 20 people. So it varies. I think festival wise, I mean, I've had a lot of great gigs in that arena. Definitely one in South America with Quiet Riot a few years ago stands out. Just because it was like being in the Beatles or something like that. You know, we like had to have our own security, and I don't remember
Yeah, yeah.
how many people were there. I heard something between like 20 and 30,000 people. I don't know if that's true or not, but it was a lot. It was just people as far as the eye could see. And then there's been a lot of great festivals in the UK and Europe as well over the years. And you know, I came before Faster Pussycat. I was playing a lot of punk rock bands, and
Yeah.
so I would tour over there a lot when I was playing in the U.S. Bombs and a couple other bands, and you know, a lot of those, my sort of early years music fandom, if you will, is a lot of punk rock stuff, especially from
Yeah.
your neck of the woods. So for me, playing a festival with Peter and the Test Tube Babies and the Subhumans was way cooler than you know, playing some sort of corporate festival wherever else. But I hate to be a bore, but a lot of it just, you know, after a while I can't remember. It just sort of was like a lot of a ocean of sort of cool gigs. You know, those are fun. Yeah, that's about
Yeah.
it.
I mean, are there any crazy stories you can tell us? Something that might have happened at a gig or
You know, I
something
mean,
you've
there's
seen?
a crazy tour story for
Yeah,
every
go on. Crazy tour
day.
story. That's what we
Uh,
want to hear.
you know,
Preferably one that nobody else has heard before. So an
I,
exclusive crazy tour
I,
story.
yeah, I'm trying to think of one that won't get anyone in trouble. Uh,
You can change the names if you like. Change the
yeah.
band names, change the musicians' names.
Okay, here's a funny one I don't think I've told before, at least publicly.
Okay.
We had a
I'll just
band
get cozy. Just a minute. I'm
with
going to settle down with my
uh,
tea and my doll.
Faster Pussycat. I see
Right.
the doll. I like the
Go
doll.
on then. Yep.
Faster Pussycat had a
I'm
band
ready
go
now,
out on
Mr.
tour with
Green. Yep.
us. We took a band out on tour with us, and it was sort of, it's quite common at that level to take a band out on tour who financially contributes to the tour by maybe, they would say, buying onto a tour. And so this in the sort of whatever you want to call it behind it, the explanation behind it is like, okay, so your band wants to come on our tour, so you're going to contribute financially, and in this instance, ride on the bus. So you're paying, you know, $1,000 a week or whatever it is. I'm making this number up, and you get to play in front of a guaranteed audience every night. A, and B, you get to be on the bus and use the back line or whatever else. It's a fair
Yeah.
trade, if you ask me, and that's
Mm.
just par for the course with the business of things nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had this band buy onto the tour, and they were relatively young and relatively inexperienced. And the lead singer was determined to, you know, party with us and hang tough, and you know, wanted to show that he could hang with the big boys. And Faster Pussycat, you know, especially before Tammy got sober and whatnot, was known for being a party band, a drinking band, you know, partaking in whatever. And
Yeah.
uh, most of us stayed up, I think, the first night of the tour, sort of to hold court as we did, and we drank, and excessively as we did, and we drank this poor kid in the opening band uh, under the table to the point where he peed his pants in the front lounge of the bus, and he was, you know, young guy, blonde hair, and we affectionately referred to him as PP DeVille for the rest of the tour. And so that's a fun one. That doesn't get anybody into too much
Yeah, I'm
trouble.
trying to work out who it is now.
Yeah, you might have heard of them. You might not have. They are out of the Chicago area, but
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
that was a
Now,
fun one.
you had some UK tour dates planned, didn't you, from earlier this year that were cancelled?
Uh,
Faster Pussycat.
Pussycat and LA Guns, both. Yeah, I was supposed to do some shows with the guys this year, although I don't think I was going to go over to your neck of the woods with them. I think I might have been committed to LA Guns tour at that same time, but it doesn't matter at this point anyhow because they all got canceled
Yeah,
or
everything's been
postponed.
cancelled. But it must be hard juggling things for you when you're in more than one band.
It
Trying
can
and
it can be. When I
work
was,
it all out, you know.
what, 10, 12, 15 years ago, when I was in my early 20s, I was definitely, there was a point where I think I was in a dozen bands, and I would just go from rehearsal to rehearsal to showcase,
Yeah.
rehearsal, and I was doing that full time and working in the afternoons and whatnot, and it was definitely a lot. And then juggling, because I did do Faster Pussycat and LA Guns simultaneously for over a year, before I started subbing out, before it became too much of a sort of a headache to do both, to try to juggle and get management to agree to sort of block out these dates and whatnot. Is a bit tough. And now
Mm,
with COVID, obviously that's the least of my concerns, but
mm,
it was definitely a pain at times.
mm.
So you have to start to prioritize and figure out what works best for your schedule and
Yeah.
whatnot.
So, what are your plans then for next year in terms of gigs, touring, working?
Well, I actually, ironically, I got an email this morning from LA Guns Management with sort of postponed piggybacking tour dates, and
Mm,
it's just very much like here's what it is. When we get to 6 weeks out, we'll reassess and then keep piggybacking as most bands are doing right now. The
mm,
general consensus, sort of in the industry, obviously, I don't speak for anyone other than myself, but is pretty much nothing till summer of next year. So, I mean, we're looking at
right.
nothing nothing till probably May or June of next year,
Hmm.
realistically. And even that to me is sort of that's a hopeful at best. I mean, obviously I'd like to see things come back by the beginning of next year or sooner or whatever, but
Mm.
that's not for me to decide. And it does get a little frustrating when people, on Twitter or whatever, are asking me as if I work for the government or have some sort of say in the seat. Yeah, hey bro, when are you guys going to start playing again? I'm like, I don't know, man. I have just as much information as you do. But I think it's safe to say that the next 9 months are a no go, and it's frustrating.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's personally for me, and again, only speaking for myself, it's given me an opportunity to focus on other things, and I do stuff beyond just playing guitar in bands, and so I've been able to focus on other things, and I've been doing a bunch
Mm.
of voiceover work. I do that on the side as well, and I get to hang out with my dog and
Ah,
be at home for more than 6, 8 weeks at a time, and
yeah.
um, and that's kind of it. So I'm trying to make lemonade out of a shit ton of lemons here. So far that's all I can do.
I want to know what kind of dog you've got.
She is an American Staffordshire Terrier, or a
Oh,
Staffy, or a pit bull, in layman's terms,
okay.
and our AKC, and because I'm such a pit bull proponent, our AKC defines the our staffies different from your staffies. So in the UK, so
Yeah, it's
ours
all
are a
different
little more,
kinds.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So ours are a little more like I think your guys' staffies are a little more boxy and smaller. And so my girl's she's back there wondering why I'm talking to a wall. But
Yeah.
you know,
You
that's
should have
my
put her on your lap so I could have seen her.
I could get her in here. She just had surgery on her knee, so I'm very weary
Oh,
of doing. She's not actually supposed to jump or climb or do anything. So,
oh,
otherwise, normally she would be in here messing with my workspace.
yeah.
I've got this walk-in closet in my place in the corner right here. As you can see, there's a scarves and belts behind me. But normally, when I'm working in this sort of desk area, she comes in and rustles. But the problem is when I'm doing something like this, she'll be, you know, banging into the microphone repeatedly and
Yeah.
jostling the desk because she wants all the attention. So I'm trying to avoid that by keeping her out in the living room.
Oh, well,
But
I
I'll,
mean, you're quite active on Twitter, and I know you've got causes that are close to your heart. So do you want to tell us about those?
yeah, I mean, I wouldn't even know where to start. I'm gonna just say I'm a pit bull advocate, and there's definitely I just call it the plight of the pit bull. They've been maligned in the press over the last 20 years here, especially in America, and the I've had a few pit bulls over the last maybe 15 years, and I sort of just decided that that was the cause that I was going to kind of underscore,
Hmm.
along with just being a rescue advocate, and not just dogs, mostly dogs, of course, because I consider myself a dog person. But you know,
I'm looking at getting a dog at the moment, so this is why I'm super interested in anything doggy.
yeah, yeah, get a rescue. I mean, the
Yeah,
amount of
I'm on a waiting list actually for a rescue dog in a few months' time, all being well. So
very cool.
it's all
Do you have
very
any types of
exciting.
any breeds that you're looking at specifically?
Yeah, looking at something small and fluffy. That's the main criteria for a
Yeah,
puppy.
understood. I
Um,
suggest a terrier or a terrier
I
mix.
used to own a Yorkie, And when you
Yeah, they're
mentioned about
great.
your dog having the knee problems, my dog had that as well with both the knees. It's very common in Yorkshire Terriers. So looking at something like that, or a Yorkie Cross, or a Cavapoo,
Yeah,
like I don't know, small and fluffy is my criteria. So
there
something you can sit on
there
my
are
lap, sit with
plenty
me
of
while I'm doing
those.
my interviews, so I can give them, stroke them and give them a cuddle, nice and quiet.
Yeah, that's what they're good for. Yeah, my girl's a
Yeah.
registered emotional support animal. She's an ESA,
Oh
and
wow.
yeah, and it definitely it soothes my anxiety frequently. So I
Very
find,
therapeutic.
oh
Yes.
yeah. They
Yeah.
don't call a man's best friend for nothing.
Definitely. Well, it's been really, really good to speak to you
Yeah, thank
and
you for
hear all
having me.
about your dog.
Yeah, yeah. I'll see if
um,
I'll get her in here for the last few seconds.
yeah, go on, get her in, get her in.
Come here.
What's she called?
Her name is Mila.
Mila.
You want to come up here? Can you see her?
Oh, hello, Mila. Oh, she's beautiful. Oh, yawn.
Yeah. She's a handful,
Oh,
if you will.
does she like your guitar playing? Does she
You
howl
know,
to it?
the first maybe 2 or 3 months that I had her about
Yeah.
6, 7 years ago, she was kind of afraid of it, and then now she's just learned to uh,
She learned to
tolerate.
love it, doesn't she?
Oh yeah, she's very needy.
Oh, she's lovely. Well, when I told you I used to have a Yorkshire Terrier, and she did not like my flute playing one bit. And I was in tune, believe me. She was obviously hearing something that the rest of us were not hearing, and she used to sit on the stairs and howl. And that's the only time
Yeah.
she ever howls, when I played the flute.
Well, I would imagine that a wind instrument like that might have some sort of higher frequencies that come
Very
along with it
high,
that maybe we're
yes.
not able to hear.
That's
You know.
exactly it, yeah. So, yeah, apart from that, I'm sure she loved it. So, lovely to talk to you and to meet Mila. I
Thank
wish
you.
you all the best with everything you're
Thank you.
doing and
Yeah.
for next year. Let us know when you're coming back to the UK.
Will do, absolutely. And be sure, supposed to be promoting the new Neon Coven album that I'm a part of too. So if anyone out there is paying attention to what I'm doing, promoting the new Neon Coven future postponed LP, and we just put out a single, Blame It on the Drugs. So if you like dark wave or Depeche Mode or dancey goth rock, check out Neon Coven.
Yeah, I like the sound of dancing goth rock. That
Yeah,
sounds better on my street.
I'll send you a link. You might like it.
Yes, please do. I'll definitely enjoy listening to that. Well, take care and all the best.
All right, you too, my dear. Thanks again for having me in.
Okay, lots of love.
Sure.
Bye.